truth where I get paranoid and I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe paranoid's a bit much. Yeah, paranoid. That's a bit overstated. It's not like I don't get paranoid. I just like I have to see it. And until I see it, I take nothing for granted. But paranoid's a bit much. And I have seen it. Guys, what do you think of my outfit? Is this I'm going for member of the Geek Squad, I think. I don't know what this is. This is my thing today. I promised I was going to wear the green shirt. I did. My hair is out of control. You know what my hair looks like? My hair looks like what would have happened had I not left grad school. This is what academic Ron would look like right here. This is it. This is me. If I'm just like I've been reading theory for the past 45 hours, eating nothing but spaghetti, which is probably what I need. Anyway, good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good evening if it's evening where you're at. How's the future, Australia? How's the future? Did we make it another day? Are we holding the fort down? Did we fix climate change? It's up to you guys. You're in the future. And, of course, to all my fellow West Coasters, good morning. It's still morning. We're a little later than usual, but good morning. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible first. Our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale during the pandemic. They supply the tea to Get Your News On with Ron. Some of my favorite, the Monk's Blend, the Raspberry Pecan, and we might in the future have a Placone-centric tea. We'll find out. Fingers crossed there. But check them out. Show them some love. Makes a great holiday gift. CT.com, ZHITEA.com. Our friends over at triageoil.com. Trendy Nay makes amazing pain oil that has been life-saving for my neck. It has done so much for my neck. You rub it on your body. Trendy Nay also educates the public on cannabis with his show. Check them out, triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. All right, my guest today, I'm so excited to have this guy. I read his book, or the book he co-authored. It's American Exceptionalism and American Innocence. I read it when he first sent it to the Jimmy Dore Show, which we were talking off mic. I'm pretty sure that was about a year and a half ago. So the book is not totally fresh on my mind, but we're going to be talking about it and going through some news of the day. He is also an editor for the Black Agenda Report. Please welcome to the show, Danny Haiphong. Danny, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Doing okay. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about the new show you got. We're going to be talking about the book some, and we're also going to be talking about some news of the day. So couple things breaking. This is one of them. Movement for a People's Party got on the ballot in its first state. This is from their website. We're on the move. Maine becomes the first state to officially register the People's Party. The People's Party is on the move. It's officially registered as a state party in Maine today. This was from December the 1st. Where in order to get on the ballot for the 2022 midterms, it had to register in December of this year. Organelles filed on the morning of the first day of the filing window. The first state party registration comes less than a month after the general election, as the People's Party prepares to offer a progressive populist alternative. Say that sentence twice fast. That's like Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. We're on the ballot. As People's Party prepares to offer a progressive populist alternative to the corporate-funded Democratic and Republican parties in 2022 and 2024. So they are on the ballot in the first state, Maine, which another interesting piece here, Maine also has ranked choice voting. So, Danny, I don't know if you follow People's Party at all, or if you're a People's Party guy or not a People's Party guy, but what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a good sign. There is such a desperate need now with Biden coming in and just so many middle fingers to the progressive section of the Democratic Party's base to really begin building real alternatives to the Democratic Party. And so, although I haven't been formally involved with the Movement for a People's Party, I am always in support of any effort on the left to build new political vehicles that can promote the interests of working class people, because that's what we don't have in the United States, and we're suffering a lot for it right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I'm at the point now where it needs to be a complete alternative vehicle. I mean, I'm I'm pretty down. Not well, maybe down's not the right way to put it, but I'm pretty, I guess, even more disconnected from electoralism than I ever have been, which I was never connected in the first place. It was always sort of like an arm's length, like, well, this is one piece of the toolkit for change, but I feel like it's an over amplified one. But now more than ever, I'm just like, ugh. Like I went from about a 2 to like a negative number somewhere. I'm not even sure where exactly. But I do, I mean, Movement for a People's Party and basically all third party efforts, all alternative efforts, they are kind of my breaths of fresh air through the muck of it, you know?
For sure. For sure. And the good thing about Movement for People's Party and third party vehicles is that as long as they are on the left and they do stand against war and they raise up the issues that affect people the most, not just here in the United States, but around the world, that's where the real work is. It's about um, getting people involved, getting people moving, and hopefully learning the lessons that more and more people need to learn as we go through another electoral cycle, another 4 years of business as usual, which is the unmitigated rule of corporations, of banks, at the expense of the many. And it's going to be important that momentum in this direction away from the Democratic Party, because we have a lot of momentum right now inside of the Democratic Party trying to build sort of these progressive bases and candidates and whatnot. I don't think really that's the direction we need to go in anymore, because we have already seen how hostile the Democratic Party is, even to its own base and to its own members of Congress, like AOC, like Bernie Sanders. We don't need more lessons in that, unless we're into masochism or something like
Yeah,
that.
right. Exactly. Like it's. I agree. Where it's like, and whenever people say, "Well, the Democratic Party just won't learn," I mean, I think that's a well-intentioned sentiment, but it's like the way I see it at this point, and it sounds like you do too. They're not interested in learning. They don't want to learn. They get it. They're not. They're just not that concerned with winning. Their first priority is let's make sure our donors are happy, and then if we can beat a Republican or two, great. If we can't, well, because all that really matters is that the donors are happy. And when you look at the past, 20 years, just about, the only time the Democrats win is when losing is pretty much inevitable. When it's like it's impossible for you to lose, you're going to win this one. That's when the Democrats win. So they offer
Right.
nothing. And because they offer nothing, the Republicans can be as horrible as they want. That's why Noam Chomsky describes the Republicans as the greatest threat to humankind, or one of the greatest threats to humankind. That's not an embellishment. That's accurate. The only way they're able to be that gruesome is because the alternative's completely non-existent and ineffective. Similarly, the only way Democrats are able to be so non-existent and ineffective is how gruesome. It's because of how gruesome the Republicans are, and they rely on the country's collective amnesia, and then the duopoly continues. So it's like, no, there is no taking this party over from the inside. You got to break this freaking chain.
Yes, and we at Black Agenda Report have been writing for years about how the Republican Party has been pushed almost off a political cliff, and that's what led to Donald Trump in a lot of respects, because the Republicans have moved so far to the right in lockstep with the Democratic Party, as the Democratic Party under the Democratic Leadership Council, led by the likes of Gore and Clinton, adopted the Reagan agenda, adopted the neoliberal agenda. The Republican Party ultimately became a shell of itself and had to morph into what we know of it today, the Koch brothers party, the party of white supremacy, all of that. That this is all about how the ruling class, how these corporatists, these monopolists, how they manipulate and shift politically in order to maintain their control. And now we're at a point where, yes, the Democratic Party is not an engine for good. It can't be transformed into that. It is really the most effective evil that exists right now politically in terms of how the US state is managed and controlled. And so we have such a duty to forward that, because there are still a lot of people who hope that if we can just get enough members of the Democratic Party to shift politically or elect enough progressives, then that somehow will bring about these demands that most people want, like universal health care, like a living wage. The reality is a lot different. The reality is that we're going to be waiting perhaps until a cataclysmic, catastrophic event occurs um, for those things, and that basically means we're not going to get it from that strategy of working within the Democratic Party, hoping and pushing, using all of our resources, which really gets me because, as also someone who considers themselves an organizer, it's just poor organizing to continue to put all your money and all of your people power into an institution that is designed to crush you.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is another topic I wanted to hit on today. I don't know how if you've been following what's going on with Section 230, but basically Trump has an executive order that he wants to blow a hole in what's known as Section 230, which is part of the Communications Decency Act, which basically says that when somebody puts something on an open publishing platform or publishes something to a website, be it a Facebook, a Twitter, or like a user comment on a news article or whatever it may be, the outlet itself is not responsible for what that user posts. And when you see institutions like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube act as censors, well, that's not cool, because now what they're trying to do is they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too. They're saying, hey, we're an open publishing platform. Well, except when we decide we're not. And that's a problem. Trump's solution for this problem is to blow a hole in Section 230, which is not really a solution at all. It just transfers authoritarianism from Silicon Valley billionaires to the FCC. And basically, the way I like to describe it to folks, it's like the equivalent of somebody goes into a hospital because they have a broken arm. And to fix that broken arm, the doctor sets them on fire. Is that your package?
Yeah, it
That's your
is.
package?
I knew it was gonna happen at this time. It's okay. I don't have to
Brilliant.
get it. My wife can get it. But
Oh, okay. All right.
anyway, it's cool. Keep going.
Danny warned me he was going to have a package come.
A
Is it
package. Yeah,
a
wink,
package?
wink.
Yeah, yeah. We don't know. We'll all be left to wonder.
Yeah, yeah.
So here's what's going on. Here's an update on all that. Trump threatens to veto defense bill unless social media shield is repealed. Now, this is what the article calls it, a social media, quote, shield, which a friend of the show, Evan Greer, tweeted this out. She's calling Section 230 a social media shield. That's like calling the First Amendment a neo-Nazi shield, or call it like that. Like that makes no sense, because it refers to all online speech, not just these social media platforms. So let's see what's going on here. President Trump threatened Tuesday to veto a must-pass annual defense policy bill unless Congress agrees to end a federal law that provides social media companies with a crucial legal shield. Again, that's not all it does. It's a lot bigger than that. You're trying to solve a problem with a really terrible solution. This is not a solution at all. Trump made this threat, so here's what he tweeted. Section 230, which is a liability shielding gift from the U.S. to big tech, again, not what it actually is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand. Therefore, it is very dangerous and unfair. Section 230 is not completely terminated as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. I will be forced unequivocally to veto the bill when sent to his desk. So that's what Donald Trump is threatening to do. So this is where it stands. This is what he's trying to do. Now, simultaneously, here is something else that's going on right now. We talked about Nathan Symington, being confirmed to the FCC. Here's what's going on there and do about that. Oh, wow. Okay. I can't look at that tweet right now. All right, weird. Okay. All right, never mind. I had a tweet from Fight for the Future that was you could go to battleforthenet.com and call your editor to demand that they do not approve Nathan Symington to the FCC. Nathan Symington, one of the architects of Trump's attempt to gut Section 230. He's totally unqualified, other than he just does what Trump says. And if they appoint him, the FCC will basically be in gridlock and not really be able to reinstate net neutrality until Joe Biden appoints a new head, which we're not even guaranteed Joe Biden is going to appoint a pro-net neutrality FCC head. He has promised he would, but that's not quite enough for me. I'll believe it when I see it. So anyway, I'm bummed out about that tweet. I don't know what happened there. But have you been following the Section 230 thing at all, Danny?
Not really. I mean, I've been seeing stories about it. I've read a little bit. From what you just stated, it sounds like there is, I mean, some bitterness on the Trump administration about how, especially by Donald Trump himself, by how social media treated him in particular. There was a lot of censorship of his wild claims, which were baseless, but Twitter did take the lead in censoring a US president, which is quite unprecedented. So this has been a building tension for, as many years as Trump has been in office, right? This Silicon Valley versus Trump's wing of the elite, and they have sparred in many ways. I mean, a lot of Trump aligned forces and the left together got a lot of the brunt of the censorship
Right.
that Silicon Valley laid on the people. And so, it's seems to me this buildup, right? This long progression of what the FCC has become, basically just an instrument of these big tech corporations. It was Clinton who kind of destroyed the FCC's regulatory capacity in '96 and monopolized the media as we know it.
Yep.
And with the 1996 Telecommunications Act. So, as you said, I'm in agreement. I don't know if Joe Biden's pick will be any better, but certainly what Trump is doing doesn't really hold any benefit to us either, right? So, it is this dead end political vortex almost that we're in where Trump is going to kick and scream his way out of office. We hope that he does something like pardon Assange or pardon Edward Snowden, but
Do you
I'm not
think he
holding my
will?
breath on that. No, no, I,
Yeah,
I,
I don't think
I
so
don't
either.
because yeah, no,
I
no,
mean,
I
I
don't
wish he
think he.
would, obviously, but
I don't think we're gonna get anything really good. I mean, people should demand, right? Since Trump has been in office, everyone should have been demanding, troop removals, and the left really kind of screwed up big time under the Trump administration. But no, do I expect that to happen? Definitely not, because the forces behind the assault on Assange and Snowden, and they go by the beat of their own drum, and I don't think Donald Trump would use his last month or so in office to do something that would immensely anger them, especially if he wants to go for 2024 again, which seems to be in the cards.
you think he will?
I don't know. I mean, if he talks about it, I'm willing to at least engage with the fact that it's either him or his political operation will have a
Sure.
big hand in the GOP. So it's unclear, but if he wants to keep it open, the door open, you don't anger the CIA in that way.
Right. I still think he kind of just wants to start his network. I mean, I don't know. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but there
It's
have been
it's
grumblings that that's what he's going to do. And he's just going to engage metrics for the last month, hijack as many news cycles as he can, because hey, that's one thing the guy knows how to do. Guy knows how to
Mhm.
hijack a news cycle. He's been doing it for 4 freaking years, and he
Yes.
plays the press like a fiddle. The corporate press. Granted, they're not that hard to play, but he still
No.
does it. And that's what he's going to continue to do. Then he's going to start his network, and he's going to basically succeed at what Sarah Palin failed at. I think that's likely what's going to happen. But he might, I mean, I
Right.
don't know. Maybe he will run in 2024. I don't think he
Well,
ever wanted the gig, though.
No, that's true too. Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I think a lot of this was really always about his brand, which is part of the political inconsistency in Donald Trump in so many ways, right? He can be a far right, oligarch in some ways, and in other ways, he's doing his own thing because he's always interested in his brand. And even if it is something that we should not have opposed, which unfortunately a lot of quote unquote liberals oppose, things like détente with Russia, for example. Strange, very weird that the establishment wants war with Russia. It seems to me a very counterproductive exercise, but that was part of Trump's brand. His brand was,
Yeah,
I'm gonna flank in certain areas that I know I can flank against the establishment, so I can look like the outsider. I can do that, and he fooled a lot of people. I mean, look, there are a lot of people who who still believe Trump is an outsider. He didn't get all those votes for nothing. And as you said before, too, the only reason the Democrats beat Trump this time is because it's a pandemic and it's an economic crisis, and mail-in voting was easier than general vote, than just voting in a in-person election with all of the anomalies and suppression that goes on during election cycles. So that's really the only reason Biden could pull this one out. And it's troubling because I think uh, there's a lot of unfortunate lessons that are hard for people to swallow. One is that Trump wasn't the Nazi monster we thought he was. He was actually the aberration, at least individually, that a lot of on the left we thought he was, someone who kind of just accidentally became president. But also his political forces are not the Nazi monsters we thought they would, that a lot of liberals thought they were. But it is still a troubling trend that all we have politically in Washington is either a neoliberal option or the Trump GOP option, and neither of those things bring any material benefit. Like, where has been the material benefit out of it in a Trump administration? The
right.
same with the Democratic Party administration, right? And those lessons, I think, are difficult because people got caught up in the media circus, because that's what politics are in a lot of ways in the United States right now.
Yeah, well, and then bringing it back to Section 230, I mean, when you're talking the censorship, and especially as you pointed out, and as we've seen, the left in a lot of that censorship as well. Um, the problem is very much apparent. Like, no one's saying it's not a problem. What's very disturbing is how this is the solution, and then you see these elected officials, you see people like Ted Cruz go to these hearings and just demonstrate that they don't understand what this law actually does and what taking it away would actually do. They just don't understand it. They just do these grandstanding theatrics like, oh, this is suppressing, blah, blah, blah. And then underneath it, people say, well, so this is what the policy actually does. And this is how, if you gutted Section 230, it would lead to more censorship, not less. A, because you would just have FCC bureaucrats doing the same thing. B, because now all these social media platforms, they're going to be scared of lawsuits. So they're just going to
Hmm.
censor all political speech whatsoever because they don't want to get sued. So it would lead to more online censorship, not less, which, by the way, it already has. Ever since Trump's executive order, they started scrubbing YouTube channels. They started
Yeah.
suspending people more. I mean, it's already happened. So it's right there. Uh, and there's this weird trend, and I think it goes to when you just go from neo-fascist to neo-con and do ring around the rosy with one or the other. Both are destructive. Both lead to the other. Um, we live in this moment where we think that we can fix a bad situation with shittier policy. And the world doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
No, no, it doesn't. It works for the corporate interests that ultimately control Washington. I mean, that's really where the debate seems to be stuck, right? Ted Cruz and they have these like neo-fascist libertarian kind of economic ideologies that if you just let corporations go and kind of determine things, that's what needs to happen, but then they don't like that when it affects them, basically. So they want to repeal this thing because they obviously think that there needs to be more tightened control in a time where they believe that they're the ones who are the victims of whatever the Democratic Party's the so-called rigged election. That's the narrative that Trump and a lot of the GOP has adopted, which the Democrats helped push along with the whole Russiagate 4-year long election that we had under Trump. So yeah, as you said, there is this uh, very organic relationship and connection between the Trump and GOP wing of the elite and the Democratic Party, more neoliberal wing of the elite. They play off of each other. It's like the picture, the image of Kamala Harris fist bumping Lindsey Graham, right? That's the real relationship between the two wings of the duopoly, and all policies, all policies that are debated reflect this. That's why we have no real solutions to what is a real big problem for us, for people who are trying to do independent journalism, who are trying to do independent organizing, who are trying to build a new world, who want to see a more just and equitable society here. That's the biggest consequences of what these laws kind of dole out to us fall hardest on the people doing the real work. And that's where the entire elite agree wholeheartedly, and making sure that whatever happens, whether it's the FCC in control, whether if it's Silicon Valley corporations in control, that the outcome is beneficial regardless for them.
So, real quick here, I figured out. So, what happened was the tech glitch I had there was I unknowingly signed out of Twitter before the show started. That's why I couldn't see that tweet. So, here it is. Here's what you can do to try to stop Nathan Symington from being appointed. You can go to battleforthenet.com and you can call your senators. You just put in your zip code and then they will connect you and you can let your voice be heard. All right, so I got one more story for you before we just start talking generally, and this is I'm excited to talk about this with you. So Obama, good old Obama, he always weighs in at the best times, like he really does, and
Yeah, no.
it's always something very valuable he brings to the table. And here's what he has recently. Here's what he says. You know, you lose people with snappy slogans like defund the police. Now, I figure maybe we need a non-snappy slogan. Here's my alternative. Maybe we need to try, let's have a beer with police with a chaser of Flint water while the cameras are on and ignore the actual problem. That is not snappy. Maybe we should try that one. Maybe we should try that one. So there's Obama weighing in at the great man. And I'll be honest, I don't know where you're at on this, but I'll always have the egg on my face that I gave Obama the benefit of the doubt way longer than I should have, pretty much until the end. And then finally, when I got to listen to firsthand accounts from like a Dennis Kucinich of what actually went down with the ACA, and then you hear Obama himself chuckling about the fact that he's a moderate Republican. You see his stunt in Flint. You see how the only time he shows his face is to do something like push for a Dianne Feinstein. And you realize that, yeah, this guy fooled us, or he fooled me. I mean, I can't, but he fooled me. And this was not the guy I thought I was voting for twice or anywhere close to it. And I didn't even support in the 08 primary. I was a Kucinich guy, but I still at least thought I was voting for a center left guy who was going to be a bridge, to a better tomorrow. And it was just another Reagan term for 8 freaking years, and by his own design. And then here he is. First of all, do you agree with that statement? Do you think we got to get rid of these snappy slogans like defund the police?
Yeah, no. I mean, look, Obama, I mean, when he wants to come out as like the Cosby pull up your pants, get back in the house, breathe a sigh of relief and just adore my 3-point jump shot, like that. when he wants to do that to the benefit of the party, of the DNC, he does it, and he does it unapologetically. And so it, and he's very, I mean, this is what he always has been. He's always been very crafted. He's always been very scripted. He's always been kind of the quintessential effective company man. You know, a lot of company men like Joe Biden, they're not effective at what they do. They don't do their job necessarily that well, right? Like, but Barack Obama, with all of his training and his talent, he has used it in the service of a lot of it is for his pocketbook. He's become immensely wealthy. I mean, I think his book deal was somewhat of the 60-70 million dollars, right? So he's made a lot of money, has gotten a lot of clout for what he's done as president. And uh with these comments, it's always directed at people who are trying to make the United States and trying to make the world a better place. That's who he's always directed his ire to. It started with being this figure, the first black president who could take the most progressive constituency in the United States' history, Black America, and take that constituency and push them to the right, so long as his representation and his presence would allow them some sense of justice, some sense of power. And that's what he has exploited since day one. He actually helped a whole lot of people. Even people like Jim Clyburn have benefited a lot just by Obama's presence, because it has allowed them to be even more unaccountable to people than at any point prior. So yeah, no, Barack Obama, we talked about it yesterday on our live stream at Black Agenda Report. We need to talk about his legacy, because this is his legacy. Saying things like this is his legacy. It represents everything that his administration and that his presidency really was. I mean, he says this with such callousness and doesn't even own up to the fact that Eric Holder and his DOJ refused to even take statistical data of police killings during his administration. They didn't find it to be a relevant practice. Like, that's how deep this goes. And he has problems with defund the police because he had no problems with giving them hundreds of millions of dollars of military weaponry, which in effect funded the police even more with, weapons of war.
Well, and I think it's very, I mean, what's the right way to put it? Like maybe kind of, metaphorical, because I understand that messaging is a reality. I mean, messaging is important, and having solid messaging is important. But here's a guy whose big message was hope and change. He delivered neither. And meanwhile, he has a problem with defund the police, which is literally what we want to do. Like, defund the police, it means exactly, when you take the time to learn what it actually means, a lot more people are kind of open to it, where it's like, yeah, defund the police means all this money that they get. Did you know they get over 50% of your city's budget? No, I didn't know that. That's not right. It's not right that over half of my city's budget goes to militarizing the police. I am for that. So it's really an olive branch for more people to learn what defund the police really means and what it's all about. And it's exactly what people want to do. Like, oh, well, why don't you just call it reform the police? Because that ship has sailed. It's too late. You can't reform this. You cannot reform this. The disease that is our law enforcement cannot be reformed. So we're calling to defund the police. And this is what it means. And Barack Obama has a problem with that, when it's like, well, this is what we're trying to do. These aren't just platitudes that have no meaning. This is what people actually want to do. Oh, and by the way, a lot of those tweets people were putting out, like, well, defund the police loses seats. Nope, that's not what happened. Moderates lost seats. That's what lost seats, not defund the police. So nice try.
Yeah, it's all about blaming people who are progressive, people who are on the left. That's what we're going to get. And Obama can make a great post-presidential career out of what is going to become a lucrative project for the Democratic Party and the DNC, which is those who called for Medicare for all, those who wanted a living wage, those who wanted the police to be defunded, the police departments which receive 50% or more of city budgets, which received military weapons from the Pentagon. All of that is to blame for why the Democratic Party lost congressional seats in the House. That is going to be something that'll be key for Biden, because we know that Biden will not really deliver anything that will sustain momentum for a second term, unless we're in a very similar situation as to the one we were in
But
here in
didn't you
2020.
hear him? Didn't you hear him say help is on the way? You're not convinced?
Help is on the way. America is back. That's I love his 5-word tweets, which absolutely say nothing, but yet he believes they're catchy or zingers or something. It's quite interesting.
That's one way to put it. Well, I mean, this country, when you look at like what the acceptable realm of conversation is within the establishment, it's like we're like if a spam ad from 1997 on an early internet browser decided to form a society. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Just the ideas that are put forth that we're supposed to take seriously. And then something like defund the police, they have an issue with that. They have an issue with that. It's like, wait a second. Over the past 4 years, they presented literally an anti-healthcare bill as a healthcare bill. That's what they did. They presented an anti-healthcare bill that took healthcare away from millions as a healthcare bill. Prior to that, you put Mitt Romney's healthcare plan forth as a healthcare bill. Let's see. We don't do anything about the wars. We won't even talk about it. We have a complicit media in that. And also, we have given people a one-time $1,200 fuck you payment during a pandemic. And then we talk about this as if they're entitlements, which is just a freaking lie. And we all need to be screaming. One of the reasons you pay taxes every year is so that if a pandemic happens, the government takes care of its people. This isn't a handout when you get relief during a pandemic. It's upholding an agreement. Every day that you wake up, you need to know that the United States government is stealing from you. They're stealing from me. They're stealing from all of us. It's worse than just neglecting the people. It is stealing. It is stealing. It has been stealing. It continues to be stealing. When they don't want to give you Social Security and you paid into it, that's stealing. That's not an entitlement. That's them stealing from you. When they don't want to give you Medicare and you paid into it, that's not an entitlement. That's an agreement. And they're stealing it from you. When they try to cut off the Postal Service, guess what? First of all, it is financially sustainable. But even if it wasn't, it's called the Postal Service, not the postal business. It's supposed to provide jobs for American people, which it does. And then they provide a service, which is shipping all over the frickin' world, which they do. So when they're attacking it, they're stealing from all of us. That's what's going on. And our government is a complete corporate coup. And Obama has a problem with people on Twitter and something like defunding the police. I mean, who is buying this bullshit? And let me ask you this, because I've asked a couple people this. Do you think, because I mean, over the years, Bill Clinton's legacy is not viewed within as high regard as it once was. At least I don't think overall it is. Do you think anything like that will happen with Obama on a mass scale, not just among people like you and I, but like on a mass scale?
Right. I think it will depend on the political direction of the United States, because I think the reason why Clinton's reputation has fallen so hard, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, we saw what happened in 2016, why their reputations fell so hard, was because there has been a kind of a political stagnation that's occurred among those who traditionally support Democrats. It's like there's been this awareness that, all right, the Democratic Party is not doing anything, and when it does do something, it's bad for me. But we got to hold our noses to it because the alternative is worse. And over the years, I think that's eroded people's confidence in the Democratic Party. Obama is a little bit different, though, because he has, I think, what no other Democratic Party politician has had before him. He has this kind of representationalist advantage. He has the marketing that happened around connecting him to the civil rights movement, to the Black uh, struggle for social justice, all of that. He has that, first of all, made up connection because there is no connection between the two, but he has what was crafted for him by the elite, which will likely last for a really long time. I mean, we were talking yesterday about how whenever like the refugee crisis that was created in the Middle East because of US wars in Syria and Libya, etc., Obama's never brought up around those things. Around Libya, for example, no conversation about the Obama administration's leading role in destroying that country and creating all of these crises that a lot of so-called liberal-minded people care about. It seems like they care about the displacement of people, and they cared a lot about what happened to undocumented people and the kids in cages, all of that on the Central American and Latin American question, but Obama's name never comes up. And I think it was such a powerful propaganda assault on people's consciousness that occurred during the Obama period. It'll take a lot longer for people to be able to get that in their heads, unless there is some sort of mass movement that arises and pushes, and the people that have already been doing it are joined by others and more people to push politics in a more leftward direction. I think that's the only hope, because I think what we've seen in terms of just people's legacies overall, like FDR's legacy was made by the class struggle. It was made by unions, even though they don't usually get credit. It was made by workers and unions. A lot of Black people also standing up against Jim Crow in the South. All of that. It was made by those things. FDR's legacy. Obama's legacy will be made by how people respond to the power structure and fight it. But until there is this shift, Obama will basically have carte blanche to continue to be this larger than life figure beyond that which Bill Clinton, I think, could really ever think to muster, which is saying something, because Bill Clinton, as you probably know, uh, he was a larger than life figure when he was president, and even a long time after that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely like a really that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think you're 100% right. That's exactly how it's going to go down. And it's like when you look back on it now, you think about what Obama could be doing and what he could be saying, and then what he does say. And it's like if he was even in the arena of the person that I thought he was. Were you fooled by him or no? Did you see through it from day one?
Well, here's how it went for me. In 2008, I was just able to vote, and so I
Okay.
was really pushed to vote for him. And I was like anyone else, sick of the war, sick of whatever. So I wasn't going to vote for McCain, and so I voted for Obama. But by his second term, by 2012, it was Libya. It was his response to Occupy Wall Street, because I was there for part of it, and it was his roles in both of those things, right? His suppression of Occupy Wall Street and his destruction of Libya, which made me think, wow, this is not the person that I was told he was. I was told that he was a champion for Black people. Well, not in Libya, I guess. And I was told that he was going to rectify the economic crisis. Well, he bailed out the banks and then decided to sick the FBI on Occupy Wall Street protesters, people that I knew. And I was just like, you know what? This I need to look more into this. And then I found Black Agenda Report actually that very year and started to read them. And I was like, this is interesting, because they went over his record, and no one else was, not even the people who were victimized by Obama. A lot of people on the left were really victimized. The labor movement was man, they got no concessions from him over his
Yeah.
first couple years when they were really expecting it. I had conversations with many people in labor unions who were expecting a jobs bill. They were expecting the Employee Free Choice Act, and they got none of it.
Well, and it really played such a huge role in giving us Trump because, the general person they thought, okay, hope and change. I'm going to take a chance on this Obama guy. And they think that Obama is some progressive champion. And they're like, well, if this is progressivism, I guess progressive policies suck because my life has gotten worse. And even though this is just Reagan, I'm
Yeah.
still, I mean, I don't know. I thought I was voting for this hope and change guy. I guess this is progressive policies. I guess they suck. So let me take a chance on this Trump guy. I mean, a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
happened. So, one of the good things at going through the muck are books like this. I want to use the rest of the time to kind of talk about your book and what you're up to now. And everybody watching, if you have any questions for myself or Danny, please do leave a super chat. The super chats do allow this show to continue to exist. But we're going to talk about this book. I did read it when you first sent it, which I think we were talking, it's been about a year and a half. So it's not super fresh in my mind, but I did review a little bit. I forked through it some. So American exceptionalism and American innocence. Danny, what's wrong with American exceptionalism? I remember being told we were all exceptional in grade school. Is that not the case? Was I lied to? What's going on?
Yes, you were lied to. We were all lied to. That's so, and it's much bigger. And what we try to talk about in the book is how American exceptionalism, of course, it's a big lie. I mean, it's a big lie depending on your vantage point. If you are the elite, if you are descendants of the slavocracy, if you benefited from the genocide of indigenous people and from the enslavement of Africans, and then from the system of exploitation that ran through both of those processes into the current period, then you are, in fact, going to embrace American exceptionalism. The problem with it is that those in power, the ruling class, have used this ideology to basically universalize their interests for everybody else. So a lot of people, even the most progressive of the left, and Bernie Sanders has done this a bunch, the Squad does this a bunch, even on foreign policy issues, they end up holding on to this idea that the United States can be a more quote unquote perfect union. It can live up to these values, right? And there's no real analysis or conversation about, well, where did these values of freedom of speech, where did these values of, these constitutional values, where did they come from? They came from a system that was always based on this exploitation. So if we want a society that can live by some of these values, we're going to have to look at the economic and political basis of where we're talking about. And that's what the book tries to do. The book tries to hit on a lot of issues that and a lot of topics that I think are still very relevant. We go over Black Lives Matter. We go over the whole introduction kind of starts off with the fake news narrative, and Obama was the architect of that, and how it was all about protecting the sanctity of the United States, right? Going after these people like Ron Placone and Jimmy Dore and Black Agenda Report, right? Silencing them because they're causing all of this chaos. They're making the United States look bad. Susan Rice going on MSNBC and saying that Black Lives Matter is being supported by the Russians. All of this is all about painting a picture of the United States under siege, meaning that the United States is actually what it should be and what um, the founders wanted it to be. So that means alternative voices need to be suppressed. And I think that it's so insidious, this ideology, because one, it's first of all, it's racist in character because it has always been about how to make the US a more effective and benevolent quote unquote empire. It's the ideology of Joe Biden in a sense, right? Although Trump definitely ascribes to it as well. There is no one in the elite that doesn't. But the book is more about how do we think about this ideology and its impact on our movement? Because while we saw a lot of positive developments, the uprisings against policing, racist policing, and um, corruption, the uprising against the 1% in Occupy Wall Street, and how that morphed into the Sanders insurgency. But there was still a lot of silence on something like US foreign policy or Obama's legacy or a lot of the things we're talking about right now. We argue that a big reason why they're not talked about is because they go over the line of acceptable discourse. They go over the line of what's acceptable to talk about the image of the United States. Because once you start getting into these very deep rooted systemic problems, you begin to realize that no, the United States was never exceptional. The United States was never a democracy for people, for the masses. It was always a system, a society designed to benefit the rich, to benefit a certain class of people over really the rest of humanity, but more so also particular nations, particular groups. Uh, and until we get a more full picture of that history and how it applies to today and our situation today, we can't really move forward as a movement. We'll continue to do things like spend all of our resources in the Democratic Party. And I think that that's really the purpose of the book and the basis of it.
Well, Danny, I'll push back a little bit. I would make the argument that America is exceptional. It's exceptionally cruel, but we can agree to disagree. No, let me ask you. This is kind of an aside on some of the stuff you're saying. Do you think it's fair to call Joe Biden a neocon?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. What? Well, I mean, the neocon wing of the duopoly emerged at the same time that Joe Biden was making his career. I mean, if Joe Biden collaborated with segregationists like Thurmond in South Carolina, like, if he can do that, then why is his vote for the Iraq War? Why is his constant defense of the invasion of Iraq? And why is his consistent support for neocon imperialist policies? Why is that not
Yeah.
neoconservative? I think a lot of people really do. And this is part of our book too. It's like there's a lot of grasping at straws, almost trying to find ways to make
I remember
people
that
like
part.
Biden look better. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do remember that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I call him neocon too, and it's like, well, how was it for you emotionally? Just as another aside, like, because it's like, I mean, I was in this weird headspace, and I feel not alone. I mean, I know I'm not. Where it's like, yeah, I'm happy Trump's gone, but then Biden's coming in, and I mean, look, Danny, I am an optimist to the end. I have still not completely abandoned hope that between now and January, we won't just abolish the presidency. I'm holding out hope for that. We just abolish the presidency. Then you got to watch Trump lose, but you don't have to watch Biden take office either. And that is a win-win.
Yes. Yeah. No.
I'm not giving
Emotionally,
up hope.
look. Emotionally, it's a rough ride. I mean, I think us on the left had to be honest that this election was a very difficult one because to me it was an election about nothing. Because what I think this shows is that even though there has been a lot of progress made, and we can't not be optimistic about the fact that people are dissatisfied, a lot of a lot of the electorate, which has its both progressive and very non-progressive elements to it, but when we think about just what happened during the 2020 election, it was a constant middle finger to progressives. And then it became really a referendum on Trump, and a referendum not on policy, but just on whether you want Trump or whether you want not Trump. And the result was Biden won by a bit. And then the liberal class, especially the um, more elite sections of that liberal class, they went out and celebrated, and a lot of people celebrated, especially on our coasts. I'm sure you got a little bit of a taste of that, but here in New York, a lot of celebrations, and that was very disheartening. Just because even though you know that the dissatisfaction is there, you know that the United States is really a pressure cooker at this point in terms of the contradictions and the level of suffering people are going through. You also know that there's a whole army of people ready to defend this system as well. So it's going to be a battle, and a little discouragement, I think, is just realistic, is just realism, is just an understanding of the situation we're in. But the optimism should be that if this pandemic, if this moment has taught us anything, it's that this overall empire that the United States rules over is in a very, very delicate position globally. It's a very delicate position here in the United States. Its legitimacy is shot. So really, what we're fighting is we're fighting a real class war against all of these responses that we're going to get from this very delicate position. It's going to be tough, but there's optimism in that we know we're in this stage, and we try to lay that out in the book, that we're in this stage of this. There's no reforms coming. We're not going to get from the establishment just by watching them do their thing. We're not going to get anything. But we will get more people understanding that, and that could lead to more possibilities for real insurgent and revolutionary, hopefully, action.
Well, what is the best case scenario outcome then for all this? Like, what would you like to see as far as, breaking this down?
Well, at Black Agenda Report, we would always like to see a resurgent Black liberation movement, and a resurgent liberation movement for oppressed nations in the United States that can revive what I think have been forgotten, just historical realities that, without the most progressive constituency in the United States, without the most radical constituency, the movement here will not progress. It won't grow without a more mobilized Black polity in a left direction. So I think the best hope is that all of the progressives, there's an army of them. We do have millions of people who want things like Medicare for all, who want to fight for more socialist, at least socialist-ish society. It's really the best case scenario is that those forces begin to make strides, and Movement for People's Party is one. Third party vehicles are one side of that, but to really make strides in pooling resources together, pooling people together into dues paying mass organizations that are focusing on these very critical problems that are facing people right now, and then doing the really hard work to then ensure that people who get involved in those struggles to stop evictions, to get involved in struggles to organize workplaces, to protect public education, all of these things that are going to be part of our life for many years to come, move that into a global vision for humanity. Then we have friends. Then we have more friends, right? If we're just in the United States, we have no friends right now. Like, the United States is a friendless society. No one likes the United States. The United States is waging war everywhere. And a lot of the friends that we could have are the ones that end up being the biggest targets of the US's imperial machinery. So I think that those two, those many developments that need to occur happening all at the same time, that's our best hope. And, we're all, I think, your viewers and people like us, like, we all have a role to play in making that happen.
Well, where do you think, like a book like this, it breaks down what's really going on amidst people, what's really going on around the world, what we're really doing around the world. And, one of the things you really talk about is kind of the disconnect between what the powers that be are doing and where the people are really at. And one of the places I get my optimism is, when I look at 2016 to now, I do realize I'm not as alone as I thought I was. So, where do you think as a society we're at, mentally compared to the realm of conversation of the powers that be? Like how big of a differential do you think there is?
I think in terms of consciousness, there's been a big shift. Just there's always a response, right? Obama is the counterinsurgency president, in my opinion, and we talked about him a lot of Black Agenda Report in that way, because there's always going to be a response to movements like the uprising for Black Lives, for example. There was a response. There was a negative response. There was both repression and there was co-optation, and that always happens. But overall, the trajectory is most people in the United States with a semblance of consciousness are ready for police departments to look and act differently. That's a huge step in the right direction, especially if we begin to build momentum for efforts like community control of the police and more radical visions of what this defund narrative could be. The same goes for all of the progressive economic demands that people have. Those are class demands. I mean, universal health care, Medicare for all, canceling student debt. Those are extremely critical demands that the vast majority, at least the vast majority of people with any semblance of consciousness, which is millions upon millions, 80% of the Democratic Party base, it's unheard of, right? In the era of the Democratic Leadership Council, in the post 90s corporate takeover, you would not have even thought of something like that being a reality. But now it is. It's a reality that most people want this, and everybody is unhappy about the healthcare, quote unquote, the healthcare that they are currently receiving or not having at all. So I think we have seen a shift, and it is important to recognize that. It's very important. And we do, I mean, that was basically the basis of the book. It's like we want these ideas to be debated and discussed because we felt people are ready to do that. More people are ready to do that. During the Obama period, we called it the lonely period at Black Agenda Report because we got a lot of the backlash was incredible. People on the left, the black left, you know, in labor, the anti-war, you know, all of it. Everyone was not wanting to hear criticisms of the Democratic Party, criticisms of their much loved, beloved leader. So now we're in a different period. When Obama says these things, there's a debate, right? There's a debate. That was not when Obama called protesters in Baltimore thugs after the murder of Freddie Gray. There wasn't much of a debate. I will say there was a little bit more because Black Lives Matter had just started, but it was much more tepid and much more muted than it is now. The same goes with his Flint, Michigan debacle, as you referenced in your tweet. There wasn't a lot of debate about that when it happened. There's a lot of debate about it now. So I think that is a good sign for sure.
So, in closing here, tell me a little bit about the new show you got going on. You and Margaret Kimberly, who has also been on this show. Love Margaret, and I know you both work at Black Agenda Report. So, what's the new project y'all got going on there?
Right. Yeah, we are doing a program which we just started streaming. Yesterday was our first stream. And we're going to try to do it monthly. We've been doing kind of monthly episodes about what we feel is important to talk about, ongoing developments, and bring our analysis to it, right? Because Black Agenda Report is about the Black left, it's about anti-imperialist left, it's about coming at kind of what you do, coming at the news, coming at certain developments, maybe even more broad developments, so to speak, like the election, and analyzing them from this framework so we can kind of build more of a popular consciousness of what historically and what currently a left should look like. So we're trying to build a real left lens at Black Agenda Report. And so you can catch us at youtube.com/the left lens and definitely tune in. And yeah, we're really plugging along at Black Agenda Report. I myself, I'm doing some independent work at my Patreon. So I'm doing a lecture series on the book. So definitely come along, subscribe, patreon.com/Danny Haiphong. So yeah, there's a lot going on for sure. A lot of work to be done.
So let's go through a couple questions, and then I'll let you plug everything one more time. Let's see here. Joe, what's up, buddy? Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution, and you gave us 2 beers cheering. I love beer emojis. Do you drink beer, Danny? Are you a beer guy?
I like my mixed drinks a little more.
Okay,
I like
all right.
a little hard hitting stuff. But
What's your weapon of choice?
Go on with beer. I'm a very simple guy. I'm good with, gin and tonic, whatever. Like I'm good with whatever gets the job done, in my opinion.
I'm a simple guy too. I mean, I am honestly like a whiskey on the rocks guy. Like the first time I ever went to like a real speakeasy, a buddy of mine took me, and this was one of those things. Like his roommates were like competing bartenders, like competed around the world bartenders. And this was at like some speakeasy in San Francisco where you had to wait for a table. And we get there, and I was just like, I don't, with ginger. And my buddy was just like, dude, you're getting an old fashioned. I'm like, okay. I mean, it was a while ago. I was in my early 20s. So I've expanded a little since then. But I'm still just a whiskey on the rocks guy. But I'll have a beer too. That's cool. Thank you so much for that, Joe. I appreciate it very much. Natural Progressive Roar Media, how are you? Looking forward to making your theme song soon. which, by the way, folks, if you join my Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Placone, for a Give What You Can level, I will make you your own theme song. And that has been a super fun thing. I've made theme songs for couples. I've made theme songs for authors. I've made theme songs for other podcasts. I've made theme songs for just people who like their gig. I've made theme songs for people who just like to party. And it's a blast. And you can get that over at my Patreon for a Give What You Can level. Makes a great holiday gift, by the way. Patreon.com/Rob Placone. And Roar Media wants to know, would Danny come on Roar Media? I am going broke supporting my faves. Thank you, Ron. Well, please don't do that, but thank you very much. We want this message out there. Thank you so much, Roar Media. And I'm sure, just get in touch with Danny, and I'm sure he'll do your show. Let's see. John, what's up, buddy? John, if you're not commie, what are you really doing? That should be a song. Is that a song? That should be. Danny, is that already a song? Do you know?
I don't think so, but I'm sure there are versions of that, but that's a way to
Yeah.
get the message to the people. That's a good title. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you ain't doing nothing, if you ain't been called a red. I mean, that's a classic protest pub song that I've redone. Well, Jimmy and I redid it because Jimmy requested it. That's and then we started playing it at the Jimmy Dore shows. But yeah, that's kind of in the same vein. But it's not quite like, if you're not a commie, what are you really doing? Someone needs to write that. I like that. Thanks for that song idea, John. Dan L. Values, what's up? You gave me a Santa Claus emoji. Thank you for that. I almost, Danny, yesterday on the show, I had a guest from Whole Washington on. They're an organization trying to get single-payer healthcare in Washington State, and then also national Medicare for all. And they use red berets as part of their thing, like red berets. And they had sent me one a while ago. So I wore the red beret, and I was going to wear this shirt, and then I decided on a different shirt because I'd be like, well, it's December 1st, and I'm going to be wearing red and green. I was like, that's a little out of character too. It's like,
A little,
Ron,
yeah,
his Yuletide
holiday.
cheer, he just can't get down. He's that guy. But thank you for that, Dan. I appreciate that much. John, you have a question here. I don't understand what this means, but I'll go ahead and ask it. Sorry, just got here. Can Danny speak on his role working for the CCP? I don't know what that is. Danny, if you want to speak to that, feel free.
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is.
As working for, so I think they're probably referring to the Communist Party of China.
Okay.
We have a joke with my friends who do, organizing around opposing the new Cold War that the United States is waging on China. We say, we don't get any money for our work, but damn, we wish we did sometimes, because it's hard work, and somebody should be paying us to do this, because when you're fighting for peace, it's a lot of free labor. But this is a very common kind of slander on people who just oppose U.S. war machinations towards China, and then have the audacity to say that maybe not everything China does is half bad. Maybe there's a reason why the United States is so angry with China, and it doesn't have to do with China being some nefarious yellow peril evil country. So anyway, that's my, I guess, abbreviated answer to that.
Okay. No, thank you for that. I don't know if the person meant it playfully or if they meant it trollingly.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I just asked it. But yeah, thank you for that. And now we know what that package really was. Now we know.
Yeah, it was my it was my RMB. It was the RMB shipment that I get for all my work.
Hey, I get a bunch of those too. I get have you ever?
Yeah. You get rubles though, right? Because
I get rubles. Oh, of course I get rubles, buddy. But no, have you ever done this? Have you ever gone through, like, I did this on a Patreon stream recently where I kind of went through all of the things that people have said about me, and I mean, I still say, like, if a genie was a real thing and a genie came down and a genie was like, okay, here's the thing, that 3-wish thing, they oversold that a little. You only get one. So you got one wish. So what do you want, buddy? I would be like, I wish I was half as powerful as the people who don't like me think I am. That's my wish. I wish I was half,
Yeah,
because like I went through some of the
seriously.
stuff I've gotten, and it's like, I mean, somebody once said that I ran Google and had an inside at Google, and I
Wow,
suppress myself because that's part of the plan. I
that's part of the
demonetize
plan, yeah.
myself every day because that's all part of the.
It's
Google
all
was
about
like,
giving the image, yeah.
it's all about giving the, like, we really know that this guy, the guy who talks to his black cat and streams from his living room, he's the guy that we need to get, and we're gonna make it seem like we just demonetize him every day, but that's all part of the plan. Somebody once accused me, and this was so random. They accused me of running the Justice Democrats. I don't know why.
Wow.
I've never worked for the Justice Democrats. I mean, the closest thing I've had is people from their organization would book grassroots candidates on the Jimmy Dore show through me. That's
Yeah.
it. That's like the closest like point of reference I had. But somebody claimed that I ran the Justice Democrats. Somehow, I was the guy they
Impressive,
were looking for.
impressive.
For some reason, it was me. I was that guy. Somebody once said that what was another really goofy one? Um, those are two of the really good ones. But yeah, that I control. Oh yeah, and I have at numerous times I've had contracts with both Fox and ABC. And Danny,
Oh,
it is such an exclusive contract they don't even put me on the air. Isn't that crazy?
wow. Hey, it's good work if you can get it for sure. Just get suppressed, don't get it, you don't get any airtime, but you get all the benefits, right?
What's the weirdest one you've gotten? Have you gotten anything that's like totally out there where
Oh.
someone just says,
Oh, it's a lot of Russia, China
okay,
stuff. I mean, most of what I get is, "Oh, you're an apologist for China. Oh, you work for the Chinese Communist Party. You work for the Russian government." Iran, I've gotten some Iran stuff. You are an apologist
that
for
you
Iran.
work
See,
for
Assadist,
Iran?
yeah, like the Iranian government, Assadist. It's all
Oh,
because I've
wow.
had media appearances on, like, whatever, CGTN or Press TV, and so that's assume that you're a paid agent of them. It's like, no, they don't pay me any. Actually, it'd be nice if they did, but they don't. It's just journalists kind of going on talking about whatever they want to talk about, and just like I do with anyone else. And Yeah, no, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of agents of a foreign government. That's the kind of environment we're in. I feel like is you're an
Oh,
agent of a
big time.
foreign government.
Big
Yeah.
time. And it's really sad when you see people who should know better not be able to
Yes.
break through that muck. It's really sad when you see that. When you see people who should definitely know better tell you to
Right.
your face that
Yeah.
friends of yours are Russian spies, which I've had that
Yeah.
happen to me. I'm sure you've had that happen to you.
Yeah.
We've all had that happen to us, where you see people who are even academic minded people who should know this stuff because they've read the theory, where state media is some dirty word, but corporate media is fine. Corporate media is fine.
Totally
Oh, and by
fine.
the way,
Yeah.
when we say state media, we don't mean the CBC or the BBC or anything like that. That's all okay. We just mean RT. That's all we mean. Or saying hi. We just mean that. For some reason, the whole Farah thing only applied to RT America and saying hi. It didn't apply to anyone else. It didn't apply to BBC America. It didn't apply to anyone else except for Russian and Chinese outlets. Gee, and it's so, yeah. It's one of those things. People who should really know better get caught up in that, because that is dictionary propaganda. Where if you repeat a lie often enough, people start to believe it true. You repeat the bullshit often enough, people are going to start to be susceptible to it. And I have heard very intelligent people say
Yeah.
things where it's like all of a sudden the MSNBC switch got switched on, and it's a little scary, man. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir right now, big time.
Yeah, it is. That's the situation we're in. There are people who are opposed to Russiagate who think that it's okay for Radio Free Asia or whatever to have unmitigated access to social media while anything that's considered Chinese or Iranian can be taken down. Venezuelan can be taken down at any given moment because those governments are bad, right? It's like they're Radio Free Asia is a CIA spawn, but it doesn't matter because there's something worse out there. And that's part of our book, is to show that American exceptionalism is also about limiting our possibilities by demonizing domestic and international movements, people, examples that do threaten the sanctity of the rule of the rich. That's what a lot of the American exceptionalist propaganda is about, and it's why, um, people like us are demonized in this way, because to compare us to those evil forces allows the United States to do what it does another day.
So, a couple more questions here. First of all, Jason says support for your channel. Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate that very, very much. You all help keep the show on the air. John, so I think John's joking around, because now John says, can Danny speak on how it is to be a right-wing troll? LOL. So I think John's joking around, and that's his way of telling us that.
Yeah.
Natalie has a more serious question here, and this is an interesting question. I'm looking forward to your take on this as well. Natalie wants to know, how likely do you think a general strike might be, and how do you envision the outcome? I'll let you go first, Danny.
Wow.
Heavy, right?
I mean, general strike, those words are heavy. I think it depends on what we mean by general strike. If a lot of labor organizations, unfortunately, have taken the definition of general strike to just mean mass action, right? Mass action of people, whether they're workers or wherever they stand, to just on a day or a couple of days to protest and stop their labor, right? But a real general strike is an organized workers based movement where workers are organized and feel able to withhold their labor for long periods of time. So we're still, I think, a long way away from that. But I do think that there are both challenges and opportunities to start building that kind of movement again, because we do have, I think, the most precarious economic situation for working class people in a very long time. And we have a buildup of consciousness around the things that working class people really need. So now the question is, how does that become organized? And how do workers become organized in a more fruitful way and in a more robust way than just, well, you know, most workers aren't in unions anyway. So that's another big issue that needs to be addressed. But for all workers, a lot of the organization has been run through the Democratic Party. So how do we build a real organic and organized movement that can sustain a general strike? It's a big question. I don't have big answers as to how that begins, but it will have to, I think, begin at the point of how are we addressing the limitations of our current labor movement while also trying to build up the strength of workers within the mechanisms that already exist for us, right? We do need to be organizing more unions, and we need to be challenging the limitations that that kind of organizing presents to us.
I think that's right on. And Natalie, my answer to your question is, um, I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility that we will have a general strike where, I mean, we have the groundwork there where we are literally labeling folks essential workers, because that's what they are. We're calling them essential workers. And it's really time as a society that we just shut it down until this ridiculous status quo is altered. And that's easier said than done, because we have a society where it's set up in a way that that's not easy to do. In a lot of other countries, it's a little easier to strike than it is here. Here, it's very hard because so many people are one paycheck away from going under, where they're wondering, am I going to pay rent, or am I going to buy groceries, or am I going to get my kids medicine, or whatever it may be. That's set up by design. So a general strike is very, very difficult in a place like the United States. I think that we're in a situation where it's 1000% necessary, and it is kind of by far the best action we could take, without a doubt. So I am 1000% for it. The optimist in me says it will definitely happen. The kind of realist is saying, well, it can happen, and we just need to get there one step at a time. And I think if we did have a general strike, I think it would really shut shit down, and it would force a societal change, because last thing the ruling class want for us to just shut down the operations. That's the last thing we want. That hits them in the pocketbook. And I think if we do that, we're going to start to see some changes. Is everything just going to be totally different overnight and everything's fine? Well, no, not necessarily, but I think you're going to see better wages. I think you're going to see kind of a societal shift in our society for the better. So I do think a general strike is a very important first step. So here's hoping. Danny, where can everyone go to learn more about you?
Sure. So you can find me weekly at blackagendareport.com, where we publish an original issue each week. You can follow me on Twitter at Spirit of Ho. That's Spirit of HO. If you are able, you can subscribe for some, perks, patreon.com/Danny Haiphong. And you can find me on Facebook as well, and of course, definitely subscribe to our YouTube show, which is new, and The Left Lens. So, Black Agenda Report presents The Left Lens, but type in Left Lens, you'll find it pretty easy.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, Danny. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, John. Thank you, National Progressive War Media. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, John. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much for your super chat contributions. You helped keep the show on the air. And of course, if you all want a theme song, patreon.com/Ron Placone. Danny, where can people get the book?
Yeah, so you can go to Skyhorse Publishers website. So don't have the URL on my line, but definitely do that. You'll have some options if you don't want to go the Amazon route. There's some, independent options there, Barnes and Noble, that kind of thing. So definitely go to Skyhorse Publishing, type in the title of the book, and you can get a copy.
All right. Thank you so much, Danny. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your thoughts. I'll be back with a full stream next week on Monday. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.